Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another awesome episode of Referrals Podcast. This is your host, Michael J. Maher. And how would you like to have consistent, predictable income? Now, I know that 99.5% of the listeners of this are salespeople, commissioned salespeople, entrepreneurs. And if you're a salesperson or entrepreneur or a business owner, you know that that income can sometimes be inconsistent. You know that it can sometimes be unpredictable. So I know that you want your income to be consistent and predictable. Well, guess what? Our guest today is going to show you how to get referrals and how do those referrals lead to consistent, productive, profit, and an income that you have never, ever dreamed of before. That's our guest today. Before we get to him, I've got to give a huge shout out to Monique Harp's $107,000. She did $107,000 in income in the last 12 months. Now, full disclosure, check whatever. These are her numbers, not mine. But the bottom line is in 12 months, she implemented the 7L system. And she was deployed for 5 of those months. And she made a bet with herself that if she could make more than $90,000, that she would leave her full-time gig and go into real estate full-time. Monique Harps, congratulations. Thank you for staying true to the course. Thank you for building your business based on a foundation of love, generosity, and appreciation. You rock. And also, thank you for serving our country. And I'm so excited for you to pay your house off. So Monique, shout out to you. Now, we just had Referral Mastery Summit. If you missed it, I'm sorry. It was awesome. Seriously. It was so good. I think you can still get the recordings. Check it out at referralmasterysummit.com. And if you can get the recordings, get it, because you will now have the best referrals library on the planet, in my opinion. The other thing, too, is everybody that attended that event signed up for the next one, which is in October of 2021 in Scottsdale, Arizona at the beautiful Hilton Scottsdale Resort and Villas, one of our top places that we do these events. And guess what? You can sign up too. And because you're signing up so early bird, you're getting it at a sharp discount. You can sign up at rms21.com. I couldn't make the URL any shorter or easier. Come on, people. rms21.com, rms21.com. It is going to be an awesome, we're already planning the game night. We're going to do a casino night. We're going to have some fun stuff at this event, and we hope that you can join us. And you can get a discount by using the code PODCAST, PODCAST. Make sure that's in lowercase, podcast, at rms21.com. We'd love to have you. And right to our guest today. Dan Roshan is in the house. Finally, finally. We have been like working to get you on. It was my schedule. It was your schedule. It was my schedule. It was your schedule. And finally, we are going to get to bless our audience with Mr. Dan Roshan. Let me tell you about this guy before he jumps in here. And I've got some phenomenal questions for him. Dan Roshan is a certified practitioner in the art and science of humanistic neuro-linguistic psychology and neuro-linguistic programming from the Washington, D.C. Hypnosis Center. Dan's purpose in life is to help people to achieve their greatness and to open doorways for their success through his teaching, coaching, and mentorship. He leads the Greetings Virginia Sales Network for his agents and staff to exceed expectations. Dan is the author of Real Estate Evolution, the 10-step guide to consistent, predictable income. Consistent and predictable income, CPI for the acronym fans, which I know you're out there. As a real estate sales agent, Dan and his team are consistently top producers in their marketplace and provide solutions for their clients through their investment company, Dan and Tracy Roshan, have been investing in residential and commercial real estate ventures for more than the past 2 decades, over 20 years. The media often quotes Dan Roshan, and he frequently speaks about the current real estate market on TV. The Rochons have been featured on the Nightly News with Brian Williams, The Today Show, CNBC, The Washington Post, The Washington Examiner, WTOP News, voted as the best of DC real estate agent in Washington City paper readers poll, and more. Owner of the Greeting Virginia Sales Network. He's the associate broker in Virginia and also a broker in Maryland. He's an instructor at Mosley Real Estate Schools, the teacher for new agents, and he is also the co-founder of the premier real estate website, greetingsvirginia.com. Holy cow, like, you are so accomplished and you have done so many things, brother. I appreciate you being on.
Michael, it's my pleasure. And that was a mouthful. I appreciate the introduction. And before we get started, Monique, congratulations. And thank you for your service and 5 months deployed and have that awesome success. I want to join Michael in giving you congratulations, Monique. You should be proud of yourself.
Thanks for doing that, because, you know, she's new, right? She's brand new, and you have a soft spot for new agents. And I'm going to ask you during this interview, like, you know, what would you tell yourself if you were starting over as an agent today? And I'm going to start with that, if that's okay, is, you know, if you were Monique, or if you were even Monique 12 months ago, you know, what advice do you give the new agents that, you know, a lot of people come to you for advice?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So if I was Dan when I started, or Danny, we'll call him Danny, or Monique 12 months ago, and I was mentoring that individual today, I'm going to share with him or her to take a focus on adding value and contributing to other people and lead from that. Because what we know is that when you lead by helping, besides the fact that there's a natural, you know, reciprocity and that it will come back to you in return, yet when you lead from giving first, you're always going to be able to get in return. Yet I think even more rewarding than getting, it's about having the satisfaction that you can make a difference in somebody's life. And that would be the tone and the general concept of what I would be coaching my younger self.
Wow. Right. I mean, I'm not sure where we were going with that, but that's, you know, that's straight generosity generation stuff right there. You know, lead with generosity and lead with value, and you know, it will be reciprocated. It takes patience sometimes, and it takes faith. You know, you got to know that if I keep adding massive value and giving massive value over and over again, it will come back, and we have to be ready for it and be ready for that opportunity. That's phenomenal advice. I'm going to ask you a follow-up. This is not even scripted questions, but I know you're so good that it's like, I'm not afraid to ask you anything, which is high praise. But it's like, you know, what if that agent was just like, well, what value do I have? You know, I mean, it's like, I'm brand new in this. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I'm not like an expert in real estate, you know. Sure. How do I add value, Dan?
A couple ways. One is to align yourself with people that you can add value to. So you can imagine that you, even if it's day one of real estate, you have experience in life. Like, this isn't day one of life for you. So take a look at what have you done in the past that has been able to, like, where is your wheelhouse? What have you done, you know, before that you've been able to help somebody? Maybe you work at a restaurant like I did before I started real estate. Maybe you were in construction. Maybe you were in an office. Whatever the case may be, you have a history and you have talents that already exist. So step one is to take a look at those talents and identify your highest strengths, identify the relationships that you already have. So for example, when I started real estate, I was a waiter for years and years and years. I had the privilege of working in one of the top rated restaurants in the world. And I had the chance to be able to really, you know, have some incredible relationships that I was able to develop with, you know, some really, you know, celebrity type people. I don't like to put one person on a pedestal than another. We're all just different, right? Yet, you know, people that I was, you know, some may consider as a celebrity. And I was able to then make connections, meaningful connections with people as a young agent. So it's really take a look at what are your strengths, and then adding on to that, when you're in conversation with somebody, here's a key ingredient to the sauce. Just simply ask, Michael, how can I help you? Just ask.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, because when they ask, one of two things can happen. You can either help them in the moment, or you then create an awareness of what they need, or what would benefit them. And then as you have that awareness, and you consistently ask that of each person, or as many people as you talk to as possible, then you'll be able to start making connections.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Michael's looking for a carpenter, and the carpenter's looking for a painter, and the painter's looking for whatever, you could start then understanding what it is that they need and what connections they're looking for, and you can start connecting the dots for others.
I love it. I love it. Connecting the dots with a team of talent, right? You don't necessarily have to have the talent. If they need something, a lot of times it's not going to be you, but it could be a you that it could be somebody that you can connect them to. We kind of cover these 7 T's of generosity, if you will. And 3 of them are team, talent, and time, which is exactly what you hit on the head right there is that, you've got time, you could do things for them. You're going to have more time to do those things for them. And then you've got a team. I love what you said about align yourself and partner yourself with people who have talent, have a team of talent. And then it's that third thing is you've got other talents that you can help people with. Some people don't know how to set up their iPhone. You could help them set up their iPhone. You could, whatever it may be, you've got a lot to give. And sometimes the value is just in listening. It might just be that in and of itself. So, now I'm genuinely curious about a lot of things. So what caused you to get into real estate sales in the first place?
So I got my license in 2007, and around 2005, as I mentioned already, I was working in a restaurant. And after I got out of the military, I spent years, bartending, waiting on tables, and in the service industry. I was a very active alcoholic at the time. And in 2005 was the last drink that I drank in my life, alcoholic drink.
Yeah, congratulations.
And thank you. And between 2005 and 2007 was a discovery process for me. Because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that in my blood, in my body, I was designed to be able to help people. I was designed to be able to help people achieve their goals and solve their problems. And I was designed to be an entrepreneur. I just did not see the way. And after years and years of abusing my body and my spirit and my fitness and myself, I realized that I was going to choose at that moment to have a positive life. I was going to choose to design my life rather than running through a life of default. And so when one day I was sitting at the restaurant, we were scooping butters. Here it is. I was scooping butters into a little ramekin, and my buddy Bill said, "Hey Dan," because he knew I was looking at business opportunities. He said, "Have you ever considered being a real estate agent?" And Bill said that to me because when I looked at other businesses, it was like $250,000, $500,000 to get a Quiznos. I didn't have $500,000. And so I said, well, I had to consider it, Bill, and he suggested that I do so. And then when I did, I realized that the industry accommodated each scratch, it scratched each itch that I needed. It let me help other people. Let me help them solve their problems, solve their goals. It allowed for me to build a business with a very minimal investment, which was, a couple $1,000s in a 60-hour curriculum. And so that's when I got started. Now, little sidebar on that was, remember, it was 2007. Nobody ever told me to read the Wall Street Journal to find out it was the worst real estate market ever. Yeah,
it's like running into a brick wall to get started, right? That's an amazing story. I love the 2-year hiatus for self-discovery and really finding yourself and working through, challenges that a lot of our listeners, can relate to. And then coming out of that, when you said 2005 to 2007, I was wondering where this was going in 8, 9, and 10. And you got licensed in 2007, and then 8, 9, and 10 hit. maybe the best thing in the world is to start in a recovery or recession or depression. I mean, but the other side of it too is man, that's tough going. There's less of it out there for everybody. So how'd you survive? What did you do? Like, how did you get started?
November 2007, I got my license. My first closing was April 2008. That was 6 months later.
Yeah.
Somewhere around March, when I was working in the restaurant, I think 1 day a week at this time, and I thought I had enough money saved in the bank. I did not. And as the money was dwindling, I started getting stressed. I went to my broker, Karen, and I asked her, I said, Karen, I'm not so sure about this thing. And Karen gave me some advice. First she said, Dan, what are you doing? And I told her all the 105 things that I was doing, way more than that actually, to be able to find business. And Karen's advice for me was simply do less. And I'll never forget looking at her, and I almost picked my credit card out of my pocket like, Karen, what do you mean do less? I'm about to pay my mortgage on my credit card. I should be doing more. She's like, no, Dan, do less. And so it was at that time was when I developed a strategy for the of the market of the moment, which was short sales. And so from April of 2008, I had a lot of success in business, so much so that 12 months after then, 18 months after I had got my license, I was able to purchase the real estate brokerage that I worked for.
Wow.
And then I owned that for another 10 years, which would have brought me to 2 years ago. And then I sold the brokerage, and that's when I wrote the book, Real Estate Evolution, which was to take the experiences that I had and be able to share that with other people, to be able to show them, here's how you do business, here's how you be the very best version of yourself, and here's how you can, most effectively be able to communicate and set expectations, et cetera.
And have consistent and predictable income, right?
Absolutely.
So one of
That's
the
the
ways
outcome of it.
Yeah, one of the ways to have consistent and predictable income is to do less, right? Focus and be niche centric and do less better, right? Instead of doing more worse. And I love that. So, quickly, like what percent of listings versus buyers in your business right now? Like what do you think the percentage is on that?
Historically, the percentage has been an opportunity cost of 80 to 90% listings versus buyers.
Yeah.
And when I say opportunity cost, I say that because a healthy business, you would be around 50 to 60% listings, and then the rest buyers. We, over this past 6 months or so, have started to equal out. In fact, October, November, and September, so it's just September, October, November, we're all at a 50-50 for buyers versus sellers. So I'm really grateful for that, But I guess I historically, I'd still rather have an opportunity cost than a dangerous business, because if it was the flip flop of 90% buyers, there's some danger in that, particularly when, there's market shifts.
Time, right? The other thing too, is one is going to take a lot more time, right? The buyers are going to take a lot more time, whereas the listings, all the agents are working for you. It's like a little retail shop that everybody's going through, hopefully. And, opportunity cost versus danger is, they both have their dangers, but the opportunity cost of the time, right? Time over, time is money. And it really is especially in today's market. So what are you doing today that our listeners can do as well that would instantly, that's such a interesting word, instantly increase their production?
If I was new today, day one, I'm going to take a look at two tracks. One is long-term business. Two is instant business. Instant business, I'm going to do Facebook ads. Oh, wow. Absolutely, because it's going to allow for me to get in front of people today, or open houses, one or the other, whatever was within my passion. Yeah. Now, simultaneous to that, I'm going to develop the relationships by, again, going back to the contribution and value, that will be able to. I'll be able to help them, and they'll be able to refer to me. And that's going to be sometimes a longer term journey. That's going to be a more stable journey for the future. So it's a little bit of both. It's like today, right in this moment, and then also for long term.
And you got to have that, right? You got to have all the ABC, right? And or we can call them 1, 2, 3, right? Which is the A or the 1 is right now. The 2 and the 3 are nurture and work with. And there's people that just, they have things that are coming up later that they need to wait for or wait on. And we need to be there when they're ready and super ready. Where does your business come from now?
Yeah. So one of the early things that I did, it would have been about 13 years ago, was I started a networking group.
Yeah. Wow.
And I still for 13 years, every single Wednesday morning, now for the last several months, it's been virtually. Yet before then, I would get in my car, get up at, 5:30 a.m. I'm at a networking event by 7:30. And I've done that every single Wednesday, or at least most Wednesdays, for 13 years.
Is it affiliated with anybody, or how did that get started? So I have like 5 questions from what we just talked about. I want to know suggestions for great Facebook ads. Okay. I want to know suggestions for great open houses. I want to know suggestions for great networking group strategies, right? So let's start with the networking strategies and kind of what you're doing there and what you did there to get referrals, right?
My father, I'm in the Washington, D.C. metro area, Northern Virginia. Yeah. My father has a promotional business in Prescott, Arizona. And he's had that business for years and years and years. And it was probably when I started, maybe 20 years old at that point. And he had belonged to a networking group. And it was affiliated. It is. It's BNI. Okay. And so I had called him and said, "Hey, Dad, what's that group?" And he gave me the lowdown on it. And I met an affiliate here in the area, and I asked for her to have lunch with me. And she came and she had lunch, and I asked her, Julie was her name. I said, "Julie, what do I need to do to be able to start this group?" And she gave me a whole bunch of homework because right after I asked that question, she asked me the next question, which was, "How long have you been a licensed real estate agent?" Mm-hmm. And I told her 4 days. So she sort of laughed at me and gave me all this homework. And I don't think she expected that I would do the homework. But what the most important thing was to start that group was to be able to find, I didn't really care at the time who it was, because I knew there was power in numbers. I knew most people wouldn't be interested. So I think that first meeting, we had maybe 75, 80 people there. Oh, I would ask everybody.
Yeah.
Because I also knew that the 75 or 80 people that would be in a room, even if 50 of them were not qualified, the 20 or so that were qualified, they would never know that the other 50 were not qualified, because we weren't really, it wasn't an organized event. It was more of a presentation.
Yeah.
And they would be looking around like, "Oh my goodness, this looks great." Mm-hmm. And that is what happened. So we started that in November, the same month that I got a license. And then by January, it was up and running.
That's awesome.
Full steam ahead. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that's awesome for taking initiative, right? You didn't know what was going to go on. You might fail miserably, but at least you kind of had Julie to fall back on and a set of rules. Thank God for Dr. Ivan Meisner and BNI that, everybody wants to have a networking group, but a lot of them are so unstructured and unorganized that they ended up a waste of time. But here you had the structure and you did the homework. Kudos to you. You had the time to do it, which is good. And you had the motivation to do it. And I love how you turned your networking group. The first was more like an event than it was even a networking group. And the event led to the energy that led to a full group in January. I love that. So one thing real quick, what makes a horrible networker? Like what's one of the biggest mistakes that somebody who networks does?
Someone that's looking to what can you give me?
Yeah, take her.
Without a doubt. They go into it and say, "Hey, Michael, I'm looking for this."
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of, "Hey, Michael, how can I help you?"
Yeah. I've only found one person worse than that.
And who's that?
The networker who tries to scare you into buying their services.
Fair enough. I'd buy that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, but you hit it on the head. I said the most common mistake. I mean, you nailed that. Is the most common mistake is people go, "Oh, you should network for business." So they start networking for business. And unfortunately, that's not what networking is all about. Networking is about partnering, right? And a relationship. Yeah. I mean, the people that, I've seen it with, anything cleaner, right? Air cleaner, water cleaner, all there's like, did you know that you're drinking 75 animals a day? I mean, it's like, what? It's like, I don't like that one. So I get it. And I love that. So what's something that a really, really good networker does? So somebody that that's like a master networker like yourself and your top 2 or 3 people, what do they do consistently but besides giving? We got that from your first answer, but what do they do that is just really, really special?
A couple things. Having an awareness, which does feed back into the giving, right? Mm-hmm. What I've recognized is that even it surprises me actually, because I would have the expectation that an entrepreneur, a business person, would have the ability to be able to see an opportunity when it's presented to them. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And if you take it out now, that being said, the business entrepreneur is going to be more likely than somebody that's not an entrepreneur, a business owner or an entrepreneur, yet you still have to train and teach them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as a great networker, it's keeping your awareness. Again, it all feeds back into how can I help you? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that it's going to be business. It could be that you're looking for an introduction to somebody. Mm-hmm. It could be that you need some mentorship or coaching or masterminding. Right? It could be that we could do a joint a marketing effort, mm-hmm. right? There's so many different ways that you can help people, and oftentimes it even lies outside of where you think may be natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're opportunistic, right? And they're opportunists looking for not just opportunities for themselves, but for others.
Absolutely.
It's like, man, these two would be great together, or man, I wonder what this would look like, or they're possibilitarians, right? I just made that word up.
I like it.
but it is one of those where it's like that. You're so right with that, is that, you're also like, if you are in a how can I help you mode all the time, you have to build your team strong. You have to have this, because everybody that you talk to, it's easier for you to refer them to somebody to help them than it is for you to help them yourself.
Absolutely.
And yet you get all the value. You get all the credit for helping them when they get the problem solved, because you connected them with somebody who solved their problem. And it's beautiful, right? I mean, that's just beautiful about human nature.
Michael, and I agree with you. There was a time where I was in a life development curriculum, and I had a coach who came in to be a personal development coach, and I'm grateful for him, Mark. And he had asked me, he said, Dan, what do you want out of life? And at the time, it was as simple as a relationship with my mother and my dad. And they divorced, years and years ago, eons ago. And he said, okay, well, what would that look like? I said, well, it would look like they would call me once a week, and we would have a meaningful conversation, not one of how's the weather, not one of how's your job,
right?
Not one of that stuff.
How you feeling?
Right. Like a meaningful conversation. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and says, well, I could give you a suggestion right now that when you follow it, I could give you a 100% guarantee that you'll get what you want. I said, hey, I'm game. He says, you call them 3 times a week and you start that conversation with them. And I promise you, within a period of time, that they'll start calling you once a week. Mm. Now, fast forward to 15 years or so, my mother is living in we built her a house here on our property. Mm-hmm. It was one of my life dreams, right? She's living like 50 yards from me right now. And at the time, I didn't have a relationship with her. So you can imagine how that relationship has evolved through the years. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
And same with my dad as well. Separate relationships.
Yeah. It's like that's always the thing is how are you doing now? Right. Your relationship with both of them is phenomenal. And I love that. And it wasn't about calling once a quarter to small talk. It was calling 3 times a week until they called you once a week. And I love that. So, all right. One quick tidbit on Facebook ads, like any suggestions on Facebook ads that are going to get me to consistent and predictable income, or at least get me more leads or better leads.
Sure. So the algorithms within Facebook are, the artificial intelligence there is just designed to be able to have them make money. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're making money, what's going to cause for them to make money? It's going to be you're willing to spend money So they have to make it work. Now, unfortunately, they got in some trouble about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit longer with that. And they've had to put in some policies that make it a little bit more difficult to be advertising for real estate sales, where once upon a time we could say most likely to move, etc. So that's been taken away from us. However, you could still be able to advertise, and when you're advertising on Facebook, it's just simply advertising what does the consumer want. Because what does a buyer want? A buyer wants a home. Now that's different than a seller, by the way. What does a seller want? A seller wants an experienced agent. All right. And a lot of agents, particularly if you're new, is you have this misconception of, now they do want your service after the relationship's developed, right? But when the buyer approaches them, they think the buyer's approaching them, for you. And that's not necessarily the case. They want the home. And so it's like take the cheese of what the mouse is chasing after and provide that home for them in an advertisement. And then you can set up the ads so that they can put a little learn more here feature on the button, click learn more, and then their information auto-populates. And then as their information auto-populates, then you receive that information, and then you just call them quickly, be of value, be of service, and understand that 99 out of 100 are not going to need your service today. So don't get frustrated. Know that going in. But here's the thing. You can get one person for less than $2 to be able to click on that form and give you their information.
Yeah. How many people would pay $2 for a lead, right? Everybody.
$200 for a closing.
Yeah. Yeah. So who do you have do that? Do you have a service who does that?
Yeah, we do that ourselves. I have a team of virtual assistants. I've got a large team of virtual assistants. We have 17 virtual assistants, and 4 of those 17 work in our marketing department. And one of those 4 is responsible for that one particular activity. Yet she has support from the other 3 as well.
Which I love, right? I mean, that's exactly what we talk about on Referrals podcast all the time, is you're going to get to the point where your business is going to need leverage, people, systems, and tools and technology. And in this case, you got a virtual assistant who knows more about Facebook ads than you do.
Absolutely.
And guess what? My dad always said, don't be a PhD, hire PhDs. And I've taken that to heart in my entire life. I mean, I'm definitely not a PhD, right? But I get to know these super uber talented people who can help, can help me. All right. So then we got to give a suggestion on open houses. So you said, if I want instant productivity right now, and I want business now, that you would do Facebook ads. And I'm like, let's say I'm that agent. It's like, well, maybe that seems like a lot of work. Open houses, right? So what's a cool strategy for open houses to get consistent and predictable income?
You mentioned it, Michael, when you were sharing about, and you were sort of recapping my story about beginning the BNI. And you mentioned about treating it like an event. When I had 70 people come to the first session. When you're hosting an open house, treat it like a party. Treat it like an event. Because oftentimes the activity that goes outside of the open house is where you're going to find opportunity. So if you're advertising you make it an event on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Craigslist, anywhere you can find out, do an Eventbrite, wherever you can promote it, make it an event as though if you're hosting a party at your home. And then you broadcast that as wide as you could possibly do so. And what will occur from that is there's going to be a mind share, there's going to be an awareness of you as the expert, of you as the go-to, of you as the professional, because look what you're doing for your clients. Right? Like look at the work that you do for your clients to sell their house. And so there's going to be an attractiveness to that, so that maybe those 500 or 5,000 people that you blasted out to today, maybe they're not ready to use your services yet. They'll be aware of it. Go knock on the neighbors' doors if you're comfortable doing that. Here's the thing. And I love the fact that, Michael, that you're asking me different strategies and techniques, because the reality of it is if you don't like to do it, don't.
There you go.
Find what you love to do, find what you're passionate to do, and then freaking do it on steroids. Then just nail it. Just go out of the park with it. And so if you're comfortable and you enjoy, I love knocking on doors. I mean, right now it's a little bit challenging, with our environment. Yet in normal times, I'll go knock on doors all day long because it's enjoyable for me. I also recognize and respect it's not enjoyable for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you could still treat that as an event, whether if, knocking on doors is in your wheelhouse or not. And then, and when you do then eventually host the event, you treat it like you're hosting a party.
Yeah, 100%. And what you said, like you would invite people to a party by knocking on their door. And if you have a comfort level of doing that and you're good with it, then do it. But the thing is, there's a lot of different ways to invite people to a party. And I will tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I see out there on open houses is people don't invite their sphere of influence to that open house. And it's like, why are you not doing that? You should it's a great excuse to call your sphere. And you're like, well, I don't know if they know anybody. Right? You don't know. The only way you would know is if you called them or talked to them or texted them. Just let them know. Hey, listen, I'm going to be at this house on Sunday. I know it may not be the house for you, but it might be for someone you know. And that's it. Like literally, that's the phrase that pays. That's the script. And I love. I want everybody to write that down. Is treat it like an event. Treat it like a party. And the thing is I would prefer that if you're going to do 4 a month and you're like, well, I'm going to do 4 a month. Like I'm going to tiptoe in. I'm just going to show up for the open house 4 times a month. Well, I'm going to tell you what I learned from Dan today is do less, but I'd rather you do 1 open house in a month and invite people for 3 weeks than you do 4 open houses and not invite anybody. And because it's going to force conversation. It's going to force you to get out of your box a little bit with talking to people and just use it as an excuse to talk to people, and just think of the 2 or 3 really cool things about the house that you're holding open. And that's going to come up in conversation. It really is about opportunity and kind of being a possibilitarian.
Michael, one last thing on the open house.
Yeah.
One of my buyer's agents, one of my partners that I work with, he taught me something and I forgot it. And this is, I have to honor Doug Metz. Okay. Doug, thank you for teaching me. He taught me this about 3 weeks ago. I no longer call them open houses. They're now open homes.
Yeah.
And so Doug taught me to rephrase it as an open home because I believe that has a different feel for the buyer that's going to go and buy that open home. So that's just something I didn't want to neglect that.
Well, 100%. And we're talking to realtors a lot today. We have entrepreneurs, small business. We have CMOs, CEOs, COOs who tap into Referrals podcast, and they're very much appreciated. And we do have a Net Promoter Score episode coming up down the road that the CMOs and COOs and CEOs will definitely want to make sure they're listening in on. But it's one of those where, when you're talking to buyers, you use the word home all the time because the home has an emotional feeling and it's an attractive element for the buyers. With sellers, anytime you refer to their physical structure, you refer to it as the product or the house or whatever it may be. Don't use the word home because you want them to get less emotional about their house that they're selling because you want them to sell it like a product. And if they're still home, trust me, there's still going to be feelings. They're still going to feel like it's their home. But the more you can use the word house and product and we need to reposition this in the market, not your home in the market, it's going to get you to where you need to be, right? So I love that. I love that quick little tidbit. So what's the secret to consistent and predictable income? And then I want to talk about this free webinar that you're doing, right? So what's the secret to consistent and predictable income?
It's interesting, Michael, because I was at the gym the other day because I started going back to the gym, and I do work with a trainer. She has a mask on, and she was asking me a similar question. And the answer I gave her, though it was not acceptable to her, it is the answer. I wake up and I go to work every single day.
Show up. You show up.
I treat it like a job. I am my boss. And if I'm my boss, am I the best employee that can report to that boss? And I clock a clock. I start at the same time every morning. 9 a.m. I'm in the office. Of course, I'm doing tons of stuff before then of inspirational time, reading time, thought time, exercise time. And at 9 a.m., I hit that clock. at noon to 1, at least over the last 6 months or so, because my daughter's been home from school doing online schooling. I have lunch with my daughter. I clock out at noon, I take a lunch break. 1, I clock back in at 6 p.m. It's family time. And I treat it like a job, and it's that simple. 5 days a week, I'll do a half day on a Saturday, and on Saturday afternoons, evenings, and Sundays, that's family time.
So I absolutely love your answer. It is one thing that's really amazing is the 9 to 6.
Yeah.
When I was in Kansas City running the Kansas City home team, like full time, right? My hours were 9 to 6. Like those were my hours, 9 to 6, and noon to 1 would be lunch and returning phone calls. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have any sons or daughters, so there wasn't that. But I worked with my wife, so a lot of times that did include, wife lunch time, or I would be honestly eating lunch with a networking partner. I did a lot of that. Never Eat Alone was out. Keith Ferrazzi's book was out then. And so I really took that to heart. Unfortunately, like way too much to heart because, I never missed a meal. So it's one of those where I love the show up. And Woody Allen said that showing up is, success is 80% showing up. And in this case, maybe it's even more so. To have consistent and predictable income, you need to have consistent and predictable habits. And what you're saying is one of the habits that we can all control, we all have control over this, is that we can show up consistently and predictably at our job. And when we show up consistently and predictably, it's amazing what else becomes consistent and predictable. Like other people start to count on us because we're consistent and predictable. And our income all of a sudden turns out to be consistent and predictable because the habits are producing every single week. The problem with most agents, the reason they have inconsistent and definitely unpredictable income is because they have inconsistent and unpredictable daily habits. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about what you do in that time. It's finding the highest activity I call it ROI time.
Yeah.
It's finding what is it that's going to produce a result. Now that's not just in business, by the way.
Yeah.
That's in all areas of your life. It's in your relationships. It's in your relationship with your God. It's in your health, your fitness, whatever it is that's important to you. Figure out what is going to be the fulcrum for the lever, and then put that on your calendar first. Mm-hmm. Now, real estate sales is typically going to be lead generation. We've already talked about that. And I'd rather sit there and see somebody put 1 hour of lead generation. I just was doing a coaching event literally before this conversation. And one of the ladies I was coaching she said, I asked her, I said, well, how many, what are you going to do for your lead generation? She says, I'm going to do 4 hours a day. I said, okay, well, tell me more about that. And where we got her to was 1.5 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Because I'd rather see somebody make a commitment and then have integrity with that commitment than overpromise. I think that you would be way better off to say 1.5 hours, do 1.5 hours than you would to say 4 and do even 2.5 hours, even though you did more, right? Because you're going to have this weird energy about it.
That's right.
Yeah, so real estate sales is typically going to be lead generation. And then as your business evolves, you're going to add on other things to that, like recruiting and selecting talent, training, leading, motivating, reviewing your financials. Okay, every Sunday night, my wife, she takes our bank accounts and she puts them onto a spreadsheet. She goes to bed sometimes a little bit later than I do. She puts it at the top of the stairwell on the little landing there. I wake up early in the morning. I pick up that clipboard. It's the first thing I do every single Monday morning is I have a conversation with my bank accounts, mm-hmm. because that's important.
100%. It's everything. It's like a scorecard. And I love that. It's one of those where it also keeps money top of mind when it should be. It's not the end all be all, but you said consistent and predictable income. Well, if you're not looking at your income, how do you know it's one of the first things everybody needs to do is track their income, which is very easy to do. For some people, it's even easier because they don't have any income. But it's one of those where it's like, you need to track your income and you need to track your outgo, period. And I will tell you, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn in life was appreciating money, appreciating. and when I first got in real estate, I made a lot of money very, very quickly. And I didn't appreciate it. So it came in, went out just like that. And I didn't have any money. And then I had to pay taxes. And it was like, holy cow, like, wow, thank God the IRS worked with me for 3 years to get taxes caught up, you know. But it was one of those where it's like, you know what, when I started budgeting and looking and taking accounting and looking at like the income and the P&L, and all of a sudden I had more money than I ever had before. And I was making about the same, you know. So it's one of those where, all right, before we go, we have to tell people about, you have a free webinar for real estate agents that will help them sell another 2 to 7 homes per month without working 18 hours a day, door knocking, cold calling, or begging for business. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? How do they register for that?
Yeah, so they can go to, so we have a lot of websites out there. So the easiest thing to do is go to our main website, www.danroshan.com, Rochon. And on that website, there'll be a link on there for the program. Come in, and it's a free webinar. And my intention with that webinar, and we deliver it live frequently, okay? And so the dates will be on that tab. And my intention is to really help show you the way, specifically with the exact steps of what you can do so that you can have that income January, February, March, April, May, and that you don't have to be anxious or have that anxiety of how am I going to pay my bills, right? You can have that pride with your wife or your husband or your partner that you know that you're contributing to the family, you're contributing to the relationship financially. And just like what Michael says, money's not the end all be all. However, if you're broke, it's pretty important that you have income coming in, right? Like, we don't do things for the money. The money is an outcome. It's a byproduct of what we do, right? And certainly it's a necessity of life. You know, Zig Ziglar says, you know, it's what was it? Michael, help me with that quote.
So he said that money isn't everything, but it is important, and I rank it right up there with oxygen as how important it is to life.
Yeah.
Right.
It's only important when you don't have it.
That's right. That's right. Be without oxygen for a little bit, and you'll understand that, you know, money is right there second to oxygen in a lot of ways. Thank you, Zig Ziglar. So Dan, they can go to Dan Roshan, DANROCHON.com. They can sign up for your CPI community webinars that are teaching and helping people get more business, get more consistent and predictable income. And any final words of wisdom on an agent who's listening to this, who wants to get more consistent or more predictable with their business?
Starts with who you choose to be. Because all these concepts that we talked about were actions. They're what you're going to do. And before you focus on what you're going to do, choose who you're going to be. And understand that you have it within yourself to be the very best version of yourself. And when you can have that relationship with yourself, that you know that the only person that's actually judging you is you. You are because guess what? Everybody else is too busy judging themselves. Nobody has time to think about you. I mean, I'm not intending to make you unimportant. I'm just saying everybody else is too damn worried about thinking about, well, what's Michael thinking about me right now? And when you can shed that, and you can understand that you're a spiritual being and a human manifestation, and you can understand that we're all spiritual beings and we have this connectivity. And at the end of the day, guess what? None of it really matters. Yet, what are you going to make matter today? And so my recommendation, my suggestion is choose to have the very best life possible, then do the actions.
Love it. Love it. Dan Roshan, everybody. Hello. Referrals podcast. I believe in what he's saying. I hope you took note of that, because that was fantastic. And Dan, thank you so much for being our guest today on the Referrals podcast. This is going to be one that they listen to over and over again. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Referrals podcast listeners and viewers, take note. Hello, go back and get the actionable content from this. Get yourself somebody who knows how to do Facebook ads. Get yourself an open house. Get yourself make that an event. Make it so that people are going to come out. Get yourself into a networking group or start your own. Do something along the lines of what he did. Build a repeat and referral business as he suggested in here, and sign up for that webinar at danroshan.com. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to make it happen. And by the way, if you enjoyed today, do me a favor. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. We have great content like this every single week. We come to you weekly, and we want you to say, wow, every single week with the guest we have, with the content we provide. And if you said, wow, today, subscribe, and then do us a favor and rate and review our podcast. We would love you to do that through Google Play, Stitcher, or even iTunes. We really appreciate that. And then check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/7LTV, and you can actually watch. And in this case, you can see the video game that is in the background of Dan's office, which I used to own that game. I wasn't just like, I didn't own it. I was good at it. Like, and I will tell you, I always played Ms. Pac-Man because I was better at it than I was at the main Pac-Man. Oh, I'm sorry. I just gave away what video game was in the back of his screen. It's all good. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all of you. Thank you for tuning in to Referrals Podcast. Go to referralspodcast.com to get links to the resources that we talked about today. We will see you next time on the Referrals Podcast. Thanks, everybody.